Art mirrors the human condition.
We uncover its hidden patterns,
Experience human creativity.
elevated by digital analysis.
Welcome to the Academy.
Join the journey.
Welcome to This Explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, we're going to unpack, deconstruct, and visually break down exactly how Quentin Tarantino's 1994 masterwork, Pulp Fiction, actually operates. We're talking mechanics, narrative, the whole philosophical shebang. So whether you've seen it 100 times or you're just fascinated by cinematic structure, you're going to walk away with a crystal clear understanding of what makes this absolute masterpiece tick.
So you kind of have to ask yourself, how on earth did a totally fragmented story about hitmen and foot massages become such a massive cultural footprint? I mean, on paper, if you try to explain this plot to someone who hasn't seen it, it sounds completely absurd. You've got these bizarre, totally disjointed elements, right? Hitman debating European fast food, a washed-up boxer, accidental violence. Yet somehow, these wildly disparate pieces perfectly combined to become a defining cornerstone of modern cinema. How did Tarantino actually pull that off?
Okay, let's dive into this overarching premise. Section 1. Tapestry of the Underworld. Interlocking Lives in Los Angeles.
To really get this film, we first have to map out the board. We're following a deeply woven tapestry of 3 interlocking storylines, all set deep within the gritty, neon-lit criminal underworld of LA. Here's our core cast navigating this chaos. We've got our 2 hitmen, Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield. Then there's Marcellus Wallace, the crime boss, casting a huge shadow over everyone. We follow Butch Coolidge, a washed-up prizefighter who completely throws a wrench into the gears by refusing to throw a fixed match. And finally, Mia Wallace, the enigmatic wife who has this truly harrowing, near-fatal brush with death. These are the pieces on the chessboard, but trust me, they aren't playing a normal game.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Tarantino structurally binds all these chaotic lives together. The narrative actually bookends itself. It literally opens and closes with the exact same diner robbery. So by the time we hit the end of the film, we're right back where we started. It ties all those disparate, chaotic events into a neat, perfectly cyclical loop.
Moving right along, Section 2. Breaking the timeline, the architecture of nonlinear storytelling.
Okay, this is where the film completely shattered traditional Hollywood narrative structures. Up until '94, most movies held your hand from point A to point B. But if you mapped out the actual events of Pulp Fiction chronologically as a standard crime timeline, it looked just like this list. Breakfast, retrieving the briefcase, Mia's overdose, then days 2 and 3 with Butch's fight and the gold watch. But Tarantino? He completely scrambled these beats. And that's absolutely crucial, because it forces you, the viewer, to actively piece the puzzle together in your head while you watch.
And this structural chaos isn't just a neat parlor trick. It radically alters the emotional impact. Because we see the ultimate fate of certain characters before we even witness their earlier actions, our judgment of their morality is just constantly shifting. You might mourn a character in one scene, only to watch them commit a terrible crime a few scenes later. It transforms what could have been a simple crime story into a really profound study of cause and effect.
Which brings us to Section 3, Dialogue as High Art, Action and Atmosphere. So the script completely abandons that classic crime trope where dialogue only serves to advance the plot. Instead of nonstop talk about the heist or the cops, we get these deeply mundane, everyday conversations. We're talking about the metric system in Paris, the unwritten etiquette of foot massages, or even the spiritual significance of miracles. It's brilliant, really, because it completely humanizes these hardened criminals right up until the exact second they commit extreme brutality. To ground our analysis here, let's look at a term for this: postmodern rhythm. Basically, it's the deliberate juxtaposition of banal, everyday conversation with sudden acts of hyperviolence. This stark contrast creates the film's entirely unique, energetic heartbeat. It's like you never know if the next line of dialogue is going to bring a punchline or a gunshot. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. Paths of Redemption. The divergent paths of redemption and doom.
And this brilliantly illustrates the film's philosophical core. Underneath the snappy dialogue, it's really a meditation on choice and divine intervention. Jules and Vincent survive the exact same point-blank shootout, right? It totally defies logic. But look at how they react. Jules interprets his survival as a literal miracle. He renounces violence to walk the earth and actually shows grace. Vincent? He experiences the exact same thing, but completely dismisses it as a freak occurrence. He absolutely refuses to change.
And what happens? Well, because Vincent ignored that spiritual warning, his trajectory remained hopelessly anchored in the underworld. And that directly leads to a sudden, unceremonious demise later on. Jules, on the other hand, actively chooses a path of spiritual awakening.
It's a profound meditation on cause and effect, cementing the argument that it's our choices, not just our circumstances, that dictate our ultimate fate.
All right, let's pick the pace back up. Section 5, a pop culture pastiche, the Cinematic Museum.
Let's dive into the final layer of this puzzle, its rich ledger of cultural history. The operative word to understand here is pastiche. It's an artistic work that intentionally draws from and imitates diverse cultural and historical styles. This perfectly captures Tarantino's method. The film is literally a cinematic museum, recycling forgotten cultural fragments and stitching them into something totally new.
Just rapidly cataloging the ingredients in this blender. You've got the cheap thrills of mid-century pulp detective magazines seamlessly mixed with highbrow French New Wave cinema. Throw in the tension of spaghetti westerns and the raw, gritty edge of 1970s exploitation cinema. It's a wild mix of lowbrow and highbrow that somehow tastes amazing.
The crucial point here is that he wasn't just copying, he was elevating. Familiar tropes can be reassembled to create an entirely original, culturally resonant masterpiece. He literally took dusty ingredients from the back of the cinematic pantry and cooked up a masterpiece that defined the 90s.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. We've cracked open the structure, the dialogue, the philosophy, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. If our fates are determined by how we react to the seemingly random miracles in our lives, are you walking the earth with your eyes open like Jules, or are you just ignoring the signs like Vincent? Something to think about the next time you experience a completely everyday miracle. Keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.
Love the masterpiece? Subscribe for more.